Hello and welcome to our SummerSlam post show. I am John Pollock alongside Mr. Wei Ting, representing Giant Baba here on this late Saturday night as we are about to turn into Sunday. How are you, Wei?
Doing pretty well, John. How are you?
I am doing great. This is a later start than I expected. We did not get our sub 15-minute Brock Lesnar match. No, he decided to have the longest singles match I think he's had since he beat the streak of The Undertaker.
How long was this main event?
It was over 22. It was almost 23 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So,
Well,
certainly on the higher end of Brock Lesnar matches, but we will get to that. Right off the top, just a note for the post show. I will be here for the entire review of the show, but then Wei is going to be handling the calls and feedback. My reasoning is that I have to wake up in about 5.5 hours, and there's only so much that I can push. I've got a pretty slam day on Sunday, but regardless, Wei has you all covered for the feedback and the calls at the end of the show. But we are going to have an extensive review of SummerSlam 2022, which I would say, Wei, going in, this was certainly met with heightened curiosity that this would be the unofficial, if not official, start of the new regime of WWE. And this definitely felt like that, kind of planting your flag and cementing, certain changes and people viewing it and, more importantly, receiving it as such.
There was one particular angle and segment that I would say felt very, indicative of a new regime in Triple H and his fingerprints in particular. The rest of it, we can discuss throughout the show of whether or not, we felt like things were changed specifically with this new regime, or if they were just simply remnants of what was already in place with Vince around.
I think that there's certain elements of this that will be assigned credit to Paul Levesque that very easily could have happened regardless. And that is, I think, what you're going to see is that there is an overall optimism that I think Paul Levesque benefits from here, whether that's deserved or not. That's the result of this change. I think people are very
when things are good, we're gonna give credit to Triple H. When things are bad, we're gonna blame it on Vince.
Well, and I think in a larger sense, like that does tell you about a longer discontent that fans have had, that they are going to assign the bad, even if it's not necessarily warranted. That was something brought up in TNA at times. I remember Dixie Carter once stating the fact that when people would chant "Fire Russo," and there were some segments that like Russo didn't have anything to do with, but that's where they assigned it because they attached that to a negative connotation. So, Paul Levesque is coming in, and I think he is coming with a lot of goodwill, and that's even after like the problems that he had at the end with NXT. And over time they will be deserved or not, but going into this, like, he is looked upon as the person that represents the optimistic WWE fan that wants to see a product that they enjoy on a routine basis.
He represents change, and I think for people that saw his audition, so to speak, with NXT Black and Gold, and the subsequent, I would say, negative, response to the rebranding of NXT once he was taken away, fan logic can't help but associate Triple H with good and Vince McMahon with bad. And going into this particular show, I'm sure he was looking to prove that. It was incredibly important for him to have this show be good, and not just good, but perhaps great.
Before we just get into the review, I'll probably write something about this in the next day or two, but Blackjack Brown, who was, a really well-known wrestling photographer and writer through many, many years. He's someone that, especially going back to older WWF shows, that you would certainly recognize. He passed away on Friday. A lot of different people, especially in the Northeast, recognizing his contributions, seem to be very well connected with a lot of different people. So I just want to mention that off the top of his passing. But we go into SummerSlam, and the pre-show, I pretty much just had on the background. The panel was on there. Titus O'Neil came out, and I was going to think, well, that didn't go so well a few weeks ago, but let's try this. But this time he was out just for a bunch of presentations to different organizations. The Edge vignette ran just stating, "I am coming tonight," and that was the pre-show. My favorite part now of these pre-shows, when it's especially a big stadium show, is at the end of the pre-show, there had to have been top 6 people that stuck around in the background to watch the tail end of this preview show. And it was just a deserted landscape because they're set outside to do the panel. And it was just the most depressing visual of like 6 fans that had stuck around to watch the end of this panel as everyone had gone to take their seats.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the explanation is that people are in the building, so therefore, the party's on the Peacock network. So what are you still doing here? Make sure you order right now. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was only significant because we got the reveal of the Edge. Arrival here. As far as I know, this was the first time you got to see it today. Was Edge?
Yeah, we only got to see "I am coming to" on TV. So if we had gotten to see the whole word, what would it have read on Monday? I am coming tonight plus 5 days.
I don't think you would have gotten to see it.
Oh, okay. So he was just mid-sentence. He hadn't written out at all. He's like, I am coming tonight, ? Tomorrow, ? What
he was
that
just
have written?
Leave you hanging there. You know, he was going to write 1 letter a day in NIGHT until we got to Saturday.
Yes. We'll spend lots of time talking about Edge. And the video opened up with a Jason Aldean with Crazy Town, which included the someone scripted putting top shelf smiles onto top shelf faces. But to top these charts, you're going to need to be the last man standing. And that was our opening up of SummerSlam here with this attendance was quite something. So the last figure that WrestleTix reported this afternoon was just over 38,300. We started off the show at over 40,000 people. And then at one point, Michael Cole just grew it to over 45,000. And then Mayor Kane informed us it was 48,000 and change. So it seemed like it was a progressively growing number throughout these 3 hours of this broadcast.
Do we expect anything, less, of course?
Well, we're some things will certainly bleed through to the new administration.
Yeah. Well, we will get a real number at some point, won't we, for this show?
This one we probably will, yeah. And it should be around like the 40 mark looks to be where they were at. That's why when they were stating at the beginning, over 40,000, I'm like, that's pretty on top of kind of where things were reported at. But anyway.
And for comparison's sake, the NFL capacity-wise, for an NFL game, this holds 60 something?
Almost 70. For an NFL game. And if you know, like on the hard camera side, like there were brief glimpses where you could see that part was pretty much all like empties and tape, and they just didn't shoot that side of the stadium and you didn't see it. But overall, like they shot it where you would have thought this thing is just full.
It looked full on camera, so I guess they, couldn't sell
it was the side that you
weren't
that you were seeing, like from your perspective. So to open up the show was Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship, noting Belair is here in her home state and all of the history going back to last year's SummerSlam where she lost to Becky, the returning Becky, after they promoted Sasha Banks right up until the minute the match was to begin. So it begins and they go to the floor and Belair goes for a KOD onto the barricade, but Becky snaps Belair's arm over the barricade and lands a leg drop and would focus on Belair's left arm throughout the rest of the match. And Belair's defending an arm bar. Belair catches her and double underhooks and slams Becky onto the edge of the apron, but Becky grabs her by the braid and pulls Belair shoulder first, ends up going into the post. Belair then rolls through on a cross body. Becky escapes, and Becky busts out the Diamond Dust. Tribute to Masato Tanaka here in this opener. Belair then tries for the KOD, and Becky holds the rope and rolls into a disarmer. Belair fights it, maneuvers out, and then takes Becky on her shoulders, landing the KOD on the floor. With one arm, she tries to get Becky into the ring. She can't do it, but Becky beats the count, and she hits a follow-up KOD. Becky lands on her feet, spinebuster to Becky, and then Belair gets yanked off the top by her braid into a manhandle slam. I thought that was a really clever spot for a 2 count. And then she goes for the manhandle off the turnbuckle, but it's countered with a one-woman span fly by Belair into the KOD and pins Becky Lynch in 15 minutes and 11 seconds. There's lots to talk about with the post-match angles, but I thought this was a great opener. I thought these two were just, everything was on. They hit everything in this match, and I would argue like this might be the best match that they have had. I think it's the WrestleMania match had so much of the entrances, the whole presentation, and they had a great match. But I really enjoyed this one a lot.
I did too. I thought it was not just a fantastic opener, but also a great match. And I thought these two were able to continue that wonderful chemistry that they showed with each other at WrestleMania. It was much like that Mania match. It was a match that was full of like very well designed sequences, full of counters, all of it very well executed. And in this case, good psychology centered around Bianca's shoulder in the setup for the disarmer, of course. And I thought a pretty spectacular finish with that Spanish fly into that KOD. I maybe felt it was a little less impressive than perhaps the Mania match, and maybe that's already because my expectations are that much higher, this time around. That maybe the shock and sort of like the atmosphere of seeing these two in a big stadium having a great match was already expected to me, but nonetheless they delivered. I thought this was an extremely worthy sequel, and this kind of had also the added feeling of like being a wrap up to their year-long feud. This has been 1 year in the making, this particular moment. And that closing moment of the hug between these two actually felt kind of cathartic.
Yeah, I thought this one, like maybe I give some extra to this one because WrestleMania had the chase of Bianca getting the title and winning it. Like it was this big crowning achievement. And in this one, I think a lot of people assumed Bel-Air would retain the title. So you didn't have that same dynamic of her getting the big win. This was her defending the title as well. But, I think two really stellar matches that they've had this year on two of the biggest shows of the year. And then, as Way mentioned, Becky offers her hand and Belair's reluctant, but they shake hands and they hug. And this looked to be the Becky turn. Like that's what it felt like. I don't think this should just be this was an in the moment, because then they shot this angle after that certainly suggests Becky is coming out of this as a babyface.
It looks like we have ended the Becky Lynch heel run.
You got your year as this character, Becky, and she was very good, but she's a better babyface.
More importantly, you got your two big stadium main events with Bianca Belair, with a worthy opponent for Bianca Belair. And coming out of it, Bianca Belair won both of those big matches. She is a much bigger star coming out of this feud. Becky Lynch, I think, has exceeded all of her expectations when, it came time for her to be announced as a heel. She's reinvented herself and continued to reinvent herself week after week. And I'm interested to see now as a babyface what elements of this sort of big time Bex character that she retains.
She can take a lot from this character and it will work as a babyface.
Yeah.
So Becky exits the ring and Belair is there celebrating when Bayley makes her return, and she comes out. And we should mention this aisle to walk to the ring was gigantic.
Huge.
It was like a 2-minute walk for these people to make it to the ring. So it's a long walk for all. Like I would love to add up like the entrance times that we devoted on this broadcast. It was just like such a long walk. So Bayley comes out. She's only going like midway here, and she's yelling, "Do you remember me?" And as she's standing there, she is followed by the returning Dakota Kai, who comes out. And then if that's not enough, we get Io Shirai, who Jimmy Smith first does identify as Io Shirai, but it appears she is coming back as Io Sky, which will be her new name. And the three of them stand side by side, and then they enter the ring with Belair by herself when Becky returns, standing shoulder to shoulder with Belair. And we get Becky chants, and Becky's challenging them to bring it on, but the three stand down and leave. And this Raw women's division just got a gigantic injection of stories, of talent, and we were talking about what's Bianca going to do after this. And we were they did the Alexa Bliss tease. Now, all of a sudden, Belair's got programs through next year. There was just so much that came out of this. And, the call up of Shirai, the return of Kai, and this is probably one of the most positively received segments of the entire show.
This was the type of thing that I think you would have expected to see on the Raw after WrestleMania, or the New Year's Dash, after a Wrestle Kingdom. Like this is sort of like the big move that a company would do to completely reinvigorate a division after telling your year-long closing stories. In this case, they managed to do it at the end of this match on the pay-per-view in the first segment. And, rightfully so, maybe at the end of the culmination of the year-long story that, Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch and the women's division by extension, has been telling this entire year. And in this case, I felt like the message was very clear. This was Triple H letting us all know that he was now in charge. His biggest contributions, I would say, to like the main roster up until this point has been the cultivation of this women's division that he's developed, from like Paige and Emma to the four horsewomen on. And this felt like this was his calling card being brought up to the main roster, complete with the person that nobody expected to return here in somebody like Dakota Kai that they just released, going as far as to bring her back, not just onto Raw in some no-name role. She is brought on to SummerSlam, okay? Walking out after Bayley. Now, the order of these walkouts I found very significant too, because Bayley for sure is somebody that everybody recognizes. She comes out, gets the big pop. Dakota Kai, less so. And I would say Io Shirai or Io Sky as well, less so. They didn't get the biggest reactions. But online, they got the biggest reactions. And coming out of this, they will get the biggest reactions because, again, they are very much, to me, representatives of the new regime of Triple H. And, Bayley really is too, but hers was expected. The others were not. And to me, they were complete decisions that Vince McMahon would never have made.
Do you like the Io Sky name change?
I don't mind it. Everybody's going to get up in arms every single time we have a wrestler come up from NXT over to the main roster to change the name. At this point, I think we've come to expect it. We know that they want to control IP. I mean, maybe there's some instance here of them not really liking a Japanese name. I don't know. I would imagine that Io Shirai herself had something to do with the choosing of this name. I think you could do a whole lot worse than Io Sky. I think it actually is kind of cool.
Fine. Like you have the genius of the sky. So it ties in with the character. I had no issue with this. I'm generally not as averse to a lot. Like some of the names are just completely goofy, but they're just like we get used to them so quickly. So
there's nothing wrong with Io Sky. On top of this, they are making a point of capitalizing this name so that when you write it, it has to be capital IYO space capital SKY. The same way you have to capitalize Kenta. The same way you have to capitalize, I guess Walter, at one time, or Evil. Like they're keeping that tradition, and you know what? That just makes it cooler for some reason. So you just kind of give me that little like weirdness about it, and I'm all in.
Capitals, I'm fine for my formatting. Mansoor and Massey, those, dude, I literally have to go Google them and then copy and paste them when I'm writing their names for stories. So the three, this ended the segment. This was like a great reminder of, a show like this, you start off by giving the audience something great. Mm-hmm. It's like, they were in a great mood from the beginning. And I think that really transferred to other stuff on the show that maybe you could have gone either way. But I think you started off where it was a glass half full type of response that the crowd was going to have.
I was ready to brew a whole pot of coffee, after this first match for the rest of the show. And I didn't exactly need it because my energy was way up after this first segment. And like you mentioned, John, completely reinvigorates the Raw Women's division. Now you have Becky Lynch and Bianca
the matches Belair. That you've got just with Shirai,
between these five, any of these five that we saw in the last segment with Becky on the babyface side of things. Now we got a hot new faction, and we have a hot new tag team on the babyface side, and Bel-Air and Bianca can incorporate another babyface to rise them up potentially to their level.
Yeah, like Shirai to me was like the top of the list, and the amount of matches that she can have, and sustainable ones as well that you hope like pairing with Asuka, stuff with Charlotte. Like there's all these new ways of where you can go, and Bel-Air has just it's tremendous now the potential that you have, and a story that links it all to, that you have to explain now with Bayley, like how she recruited these two. There's all these great options that you have.
Part of me wondered if especially when it was 3-on-1 with Bel-Air alone, part of me wondered if this would have been a place for Sasha and Naomi if they I have no idea where talks are, as far as that goes, but I wondered if the audience was thinking the same thing too. But I don't think I don't think anybody was disappointed that those two didn't show up, after this.
I'll tell you, like, that would have been kind of like that. This kind of segment was designed to get that kind of reaction from people, and it would be a natural that you would want those two in that role. That would, accomplish the same message. And we'll see if they can. Like, that is the ultimate kind of fan service move, is you reconcile things with those two, and they come back and they are like, that really is a sign of things are going to be done differently. And these two are representative of that by being on the inside and not on the outside. They plug Clash at the Castle, which will have a 1 Eastern start time on September the 3rd. So a Saturday afternoon start time. And that would be 10 a.m. on the West Coast. An early one, an early Saturday
Pretty early,
morning.
but that's like F1 time.
Yes. Are you watching the Grand Prix tomorrow?
I'll watch a little bit of it, yeah. I'll watch maybe the rest on delay, yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow's not going to happen for me with the Grand Prix, but I will
Crazy,
record it.
Crazy qualifying results.
Yeah, man. George Russell.
Yeah, George Russell. After, like, Nicholas Latifi actually got the best lap time in the practice, which is super weird. And then he ended up 20th.
Yeah, he finished 20th. Yeah.
So it's super weird.
The Miz and Logan Paul was second. So Miz comes out with Maurice and Ciampa. They're in green and black outfits. And Miz is wearing his own collectible card, mocking the Pokemon card that Logan Paul wore at WrestleMania, and telling
Polaroid.
Everyone it's one of one. Was this a Polaroid? Okay.
Yeah, a Polaroid in the case, yeah.
There's a chant of tiny balls at the beginning, and Miz now has this new gear that's all filled with "my balls are massive" name tags. So he redid his whole wardrobe built around his balls.
Oh, we got the Alex Riley phase, we got the Mizdow phase, we got the balls / Ciampa phase.
Yeah. Miz does this spot where he goes to kick Logan, who did you see the Jake Paul fight got canceled next weekend?
I didn't. Wow, really?
They put out an announcement tonight, right before SummerSlam started, that the fight is off, that this is from Jake Paul's side. His management put out a press release that Hasim Rahman they were supposed to fight at 200 pounds. And then Rahman allegedly stated he was going to fight at 215 pounds. And if they would not take that, he wouldn't take the fight. And they were not going to, they were not going to go for that. Jake apparently would go to 205, but not to 215. So they called it right off, which is definitely going to bring up questions like how was this fight doing, like ticket wise and such. I think that's going to be a natural follow-up question, but at least from the Jake Paul side, it's over this weight issue. But the fight is off for next Saturday, which we were actually going to have a post show for on the site, but not going to happen.
Is that right?
Yes, we were. So
Wow.
Anyway, that's the latest on the Jake Paul front. But so Logan comes back, he does a takedown fireman's carry spot, and then he does the same spot where Miz tries to shield himself, and then Logan just playfully kicks him in the head. And throughout the beginning of this, like, Logan Paul, he is a great athlete, and you can certainly see, like, athletically, he can pull off like a lot of stuff. Like, he's not going to be the most seasoned guy, but he can do a lot of athletic things. But I felt for like 3/4 of this match, this audience, it's like, we will boo the Miz, but we are not reacting to this guy. And it was just, it felt exactly as we discussed in our preview, that it was going to be indifference towards Logan Paul. And it was just, to me, it was like this guy was just going to go and go and go until he could win over this crowd. And I mean, this guy did a moonsault off of the apron. Ciampa got involved at one point and was caught by the ref, who ejected him. And Ciampa refuses to leave, so AJ Styles music hits, and just knowing how long that rundown was, it wasn't surprising that AJ came through the crowd and attacked Ciampa and fought him out. So that was AJ Styles' big SummerSlam contribution, was ridding the match of Ciampa. So then Logan Paul does his version of the phenomenal forearm, which Graves says, "I wouldn't call that phenomenal. It was a pretty good forearm, but it was a
pretty good forearm."
Graves is not going to put this thing over. And then Miz gets placed onto the announcer's desk, and this is where Logan Paul won everyone over, because he hit this incredible frog splash off the top, putting Miz through the table. And at that point, this audience was like, we don't want to like really cheer this guy, but that was a tremendous spot and he pulled it off and they got the crowd at this point. Maurice distracts the referee from counting. Miz takes his Polaroid and almost hits Maurice. I guess this was a very dangerous object that this card could have rendered Maurice unconscious.
It's a glass or plastic case. They might have been studded with jewels, bedazzled, sharp corners.
Well, he pulls up. He doesn't hit Maurice, and instead Logan Paul hits Miz with the skull-crushing finale and wins the match in 14 minutes and 16 seconds. I'm not going to say that this guy proved to everyone that, like, yeah, he's an awesome babyface, but listen, he got to where they wanted by the end, and this was a spectacular spot that they had at the end, and he pulled it off really well.
Considering, I think, the great deficit that he was fighting against by being positioned as a babyface against the Miz, and then ending with this reaction for the finish,
it was a win.
I would say he did really well. I was very impressed coming out of this. And going into the match, we were wondering, well, what were they going to do to cater the crowd reaction towards Logan Paul? What sort of angle would they shoot beforehand? What sort of promo would the Miz cut on the hometown crowd to favor the crowd towards Logan Paul?
Nothing.
They did nothing. All they relied on was Logan Paul's performance. And this guy did that. You can make the argument, yeah, like in his case, in Pat McAfee's case, in Bad Bunny's cases, they're going to allow them to do everything they can. They're going to give them a ton of impressive looking spots, Canadian destroyers all around, like do as many flips as you want. As long as you get over it and as long as you get on the highlight reel, it's okay. That's fine, yes. But there still is required a great deal of, I think, talent. And I thought this guy showed that. Really, like
and execution. Like, let's be honest. I know Pat McAfee's everyone's favorites. Like, he had a lot of misses in that match. He was not as smooth this time around.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, this was obviously the longest we've seen Logan Paul wrestle. He only had himself to rely on at least one side, and then beyond the moves, I thought like the selling in what little capacity we kind of got to see of it, I thought was decent. Certainly, his charisma is way up there. And that comes from, I think, years being in the spotlight, just a general comfort in front of cameras and in front of large crowds. He has that. He's still very much fighting against, I think what the intended crowd audience reaction for him is. But I thought he did so much here that like he earned my respect. And I would say probably the audiences, or at least a good portion of the audiences as well by the end of it. So I would say it was a big win for him. And the Miz, again, like as the heel, he just, again, proves why he's so valuable to the company in these sort of roles, because he provides the perfect canvas for a guy like a Logan Paul to showcase his stuff, for any babyface that's over to showcase their stuff.
So does that change where you would like to see Logan Paul continue? Because this comes out of it like he is very much positioned as a babyface, and it looks like they will continue with this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very much by his request from what I understand in wanting to be pushed as a babyface. And I think the story has to emphasize how impressive he was, how he, shut up a lot of doubters, and he has to cut some very good, fiery babyface promos. We had some people in our YouTube comments. I put up like a clip of our Logan Paul discussion, and there were a lot of Logan Paul defenders and a lot of Logan Paul fans out there who were, and I thank them for like trying to educate me that like over the past little while, Logan Paul has been like, I don't know, somewhat of a changed person, like, or at least to his audience, and he's becoming a bit of more of a babyface to his particular crowd. Nobody outside of his audience would know that. We still know him as the guy who visited that forest in Japan and has probably said like really terrible things in the public, or at least like is associated with the brother who still seems very much like a douchebag. So if there's going to be any hope of like getting the WWE audience to cheer for him as a babyface, they need to put that work in to educate the wrestling audience of, well, like, please address some of this stuff. How exactly are you a changed person?
I also think you can be like a regular compassionate person and still play a role on television. I think
totally agreed.
Kevin Owens is to me one of the most like thoughtful people out there, and he's one of the best heels in the company. I don't think you have to. I don't know. To me, it's what is best for your portrayal, and you come across as just on a scale of 1 to 10, you're a 2 as a babyface and like a 9 as a heel. So
I completely agree.
why are we fighting this tide? But they are clearly going with this. And let's be honest, like Logan Paul is not going to be a week to week character. I think we're going to be looking at him as like someone that is used, I don't know, as rarely as Pat McAfee, but like, similar. Like it will be a special attraction type of thing.
Yeah, I would say so. When do you expect to see him next?
Well, Saudi Arabia is coming up in November. That'll be a big show.
I guess.
I mean, maybe they'll use him at the stadium show next month. They're in September.
Maybe. Yeah.
We had a brief Maximum male model spot where they are thirsty, and Maxine demands water, and this is just our ad for Pure Life water, where they just poured water over each other, and it is the official water of Maximum male models.
Yeah. So I didn't even know Pure Life was like, I was wondering if this was a real brand, because like we get different labels. Like we have Nestle Pure Life here, but it's like the regular blue label. So I didn't know if this was like, oh, is this like a made up thing? So no, it's a real thing. And they seem to only have like wrestling, like WWE spokespeople, throughout at least their Twitter account. So I'm sure they would have loved this.
I'm sure they did. Bobby Lashley against Theory for the United States Championship. There was big pyro around the stadium for Lashley's entrance, and then Theory attacks him with the briefcase before the bell rings. Lashley lifts and slams him down, and then Theory grabs the case, and he's going to leave, but he's blocked by Lashley. They trade strikes. There's a leapfrog by Theory, causing Lashley to go into the corner, and then Theory rolls at Lashley, is caught in a military press, and turned into the Hurt Lock, and he submits Theory in 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Theory is selling his neck, and, I mean, even the announcers are stating, go heal up. You've got a big night ahead of you. And this is all this needed to be. It didn't have to be long. And Theory, I mean, as long as he has this briefcase, they believe that whoever holds that briefcase is bulletproof. That's not always the case, but I mean, he did not need to win though. So that was that. It was kind of a cold match, and it was, I mean, shorter than you would have even imagined these two would have got on television.
I would say I had very little interest in the match, and it went exactly as I think we all predicted. But I would say the reaction to Bobby Lashley continues to be really strong, and as a babyface, I think his babyface run in general has been very well received. And here you got a stadium-sized version of it. So to me, he's like very much on track to have a very significant role, like when we're heading towards WrestleMania season. I don't know how he figures into the plans at this point, but like, he's gaining the type of traction that I feel is like positioning himself for like a title win, like show closing moment type of thing,
Do you think at all with Lashley that it's, he's in this great run? Do you think the age scares them off at all? That no. how much we invest in a guy?
They're using Goldberg, like, every.
You're saying they? It's not they anymore.
True, yeah, but Lashley does not look old whatsoever. How old is he?
He's 45.
And how old is Brock Lesnar right now?
I think the same.
45. Okay, they're about the same age. And you know what?
Oh, sorry, Bobby's he just turned 46.
46. Okay. Well, listen, I think if you are
like being the alternative way being like a Cody Rhodes, okay? It's like you're looking like who is going to be our big guy that we're building to something like Mania time. Like the age is going to be, when you're weighing those two options, like that, that's going to come into effect.
Yeah. I think maybe Cody might be your first choice in that case, but I think the more options you have, the better. And it doesn't mean that you wouldn't crown Bobby Lashley at a separate time.
I'd see him having a strong role. Yeah.
I'll just say, like, if you look like Bobby Eaton, okay, and you're 45, I just say bring up Bobby Eaton because he was brought up on Rampage as an example of a guy who was very impressive in ring but didn't look.
Hey, Chuck Taylor will take that as a compliment. You get compared to Bobby Eaton, that's a good thing.
If you're Bobby Eaton at 45, you're probably not going to get as much of an opportunity as you do looking like Bobby Lashley at 45.
Different Bobbies, certainly, in physiques. They ran an ad for the Kurt Angle A&E doc, which I imagine is going to be very good. Kurt is very honest and upfront about all his problems, and it's an incredible story. So I imagine that'll be a very good A&E doc. I've seen a few of them. I didn't see any of the ones last week, but I'll try and see that one at some point. Finn Balor and Damian Priest with Rhea Ripley come out, and they are taking on Ray and Dominik, who are representing Hulk Hogan, I guess, in the red and yellow.
I thought we would get Halloween Havoc 97 here, with the two of them. But
no, we got.
Was Hogan on that show?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, well, maybe different tribute.
It's a no DQ match. Dominik does a dive through Ray's legs onto the floor, and then Ray with an Asai moonsault off the top. And at the beginning, everyone was kind of respecting the tag rules in this no DQ scenario. They got the heat on Dominik. The crowd's chanting for tables. Ray comes in, Quebrada onto Damian Priest, and then a seated senton. And then Ray took a chair, and this is our first use of a weapon in the no DQ match, and he does his sliding splash on the chair, landing on Balor on the floor. Balor then stops a 619 attempt, shotgun drop kicks Ray into the corner, and as he's going for the coup de grace, Dom stops things, and it leads to Ray hitting a top rope Hurricane Rana. Priest is in for the save, and then the Mysterios line up both for a double 619, but Rhea Ripley, the muscle, trips both Mysterios and then lifts Dom onto her shoulders and dumps him down. I want to see the Dominik Rhea Ripley match. They are clearly hinting this after Raw and then tonight.
I want to see Rhea Ripley versus, she's the muscle of the group, and I'm loving it. She's
dude, this women's division has a lot of pieces to it.
Definitely, you're right, especially on Raw, yeah. But I almost get the sense they're taking Rhea Ripley out to put her into this role as the muscle for the male tag team group. She's like a modern version of China, which
yeah, I think that's probably what they're going for. Mm-hmm. So Priest hits the South of Heaven chokeslam onto Ray when the lights go out, and we see fire surrounding the entrance area, and up rises the latest version of Edge, and this is kind of a very much brewed in its presentation. He comes up from this elevated stage, and his new color scheme, he has ditched the black and purple. He is now black and red version of Adam Copeland. He is also he's styled his hair differently now from the Judgment Day version. It's not a slick back.
He's grown the sides out.
Yes,
and I believe he's brought back the Edge sunglasses.
The Edge sunglasses. I think he had a lightning bolt or something on his tights.
Lightning bolt, okay.
Yeah. How do you think, just look-wise, what did you think about the presentation here? Because I think Edge certainly, of the mindset, I've got to reinvent myself. Mm-hmm. But he's coming off a reinvention that was not well received. So This one is going to be, I think Chris Jericho maybe doesn't always get the credit of all the changes he has made that have been pretty seamless and successful. And, we're seeing Edge, who had, the historical version of Edge that could be very easy and you play the hits, but he's changed things up. And the last one was not a great hit.
Yeah. I mean, I give him a lot of credit for thinking that way, and a veteran, you would expect to have those instincts, but somebody who puts so much effort into repackaging himself after every single sort of hiatus. I feel like he's done the Brood entrance one too many times since his return already. He did it, I believe. Didn't he do it during the Orton feud?
He did it at SummerSlam last year, I think.
And then,
he did it again. Yeah.
It's a well he's kind of gone to a few too many times for this to feel that unique and that different. And then he already cut his hair last time, so you don't necessarily have the shock factor of seeing him with the short hair again this time around.
He could have been bald.
Could have, yeah. I mean, he could have dyed his hair, green,
red.
Yeah, sure. Okada, come up with balloons. Yeah. So yeah, I for me, the jury's still out on this reinvention, because I wait to see if there's a difference in his promo style, in things beyond just the cosmetically. But I would say, yeah, visually, not as much of a shock as I think we would have gotten if he didn't debut with the hair during Judgment Day, and if he didn't use the Brood entrance so much.
So he comes out. He's in this red leather jacket with studs, and he just gets involved here, and all of a sudden we just get the ending here pretty quick, because he boots Damian Priest in the aisle and then spears Balor, spears Damian Priest, who makes his way back to the ring, and then a double 619 on Finn Balor, and Ray pins him with the springboard splash in 11 minutes and 8 seconds, and then Edge left with the Mysterios. So presumably this continues as sort of a, like, I don't know if you get another Judgment Day member in there or what
another
happens.
one. Damn, who else?
Or Dominik goes over. I mean, there's always that option too. But
Dominik the difference maker, maybe.
But,
I would say
Edge is linked with the Mysterios coming out of this.
Yeah, certainly. I don't know if I'd be begging to join Judgment Day if I was a wrestler at this point, because as a heel tandem, they're proven to be pretty incompetent. You know, they just lose and lose and lose. They couldn't win on Monday. They couldn't win here on a pay-per-view. They were better with Edge, weren't they?
Well, Edge.
Oh wait, Edge took the loss. Edge took the pinfall, didn't he?
No, Edge pinned. Who did he beat? It was didn't they lose?
Was this Money in the Bank? What was this?
Edge won, I feel, and then they kicked him out.
Okay, I gotta look this up.
Yeah, you got to pull up the result.
Oh, goodness.
I feel like Edge won, and they kicked him out of the group. Am I wrong?
So this was 2 months ago now. So we're talking about Hell in a Cell here.
Okay,
I'm about to get the results here, everybody. Okay, the Judgment Day beat AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Liv Morgan. All right, so they
won, and they kicked Edge out.
And then
they were doing well, and then they kicked their leader out.
They pinned Finn Balor, and they replaced
and then they recruited Balor the next night.
Now they just can't win again.
This is terrible strategy.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd be begging to join this very, poorly devised heel faction. Rhea Ripley is the strongest
but imagine
one
Dominik as their mouthpiece, though.
Well, they tied me right up. Yeah.
Michael Cole is in to call the next match with Corey Graves. It is Pat McAfee against Happy Corbin. And they played a video package going over the feud, but they also dedicated a portion to Pat McAfee's WrestleMania 38 involvement. And this was very creatively edited, where Vince McMahon did not exist in any of this. And it was just highlights of McAfee with Austin Theory and then drinking beers with Steve Austin. But you did not see any of Vince in this video package. And it was just like, I'm not stunned. I would have been surprised to have seen Vince, but to actually watch this and to know that they selectively edited around Vince McMahon. I mean, you just never thought you would reach this part where he has pretty much been erased.
That is quite amazing. Yeah, this is the same treatment they've given to any X number of people that have brought on negative PR to the company, and now it is Vince McMahon himself who is getting that sort of treatment. So do you know if he's was he ever on the opening signature or anything that might be recurring like that, to your knowledge?
I don't think he was in the opening signature.
I feel like we would have heard about it if he was taken out of something like that. But yeah, that's it. That's really interesting.
I mean, Monday told you everything. It's like Vince McMahon left the company and he didn't even get an on-air thank you, Vince McMahon, for 40 plus years. Even
got
longer.
It on Friday.
He got it on Friday, but he didn't get it on Monday. And
that's the big story.
That's really significant on the show that you would most associate as his creation didn't even get a mention on Raw. That tells you everything right there. So Corbin enters and he's coming out to his regular theme, and then it cuts to a choir that is singing Bum Ass Corbin. And I don't know if obviously, I feel the intent here was to get the entire stadium to chant Bum Ass Corbin, but I don't think one person followed suit here, as they just had this choir going. And then his music resumed, and he finished his way to the ring before Pat McAfee came out. White Stripes didn't get any royalty checks this time around. It was Pat coming out to his own theme.
Well, if he's going to do this more often, then they might want to save a bit of money on that White Stripes song.
Yes. So the match starts with a super kick from McAfee and then a Rana off the turnbuckle before sending Corbin to the floor. Pat does a backflip off of the top, but then gets nailed with a drop kick, and Corbin takes over. Michael Cole is noting that Corbin has been fighting at the top tier of WWE for years and years. This is a big test for Pat McAfee. Pat comes back, and he goes for a pescado that Corey Graves identifies as ugly but effective. And then Pat gets laid out onto the announcer's desk, and Corbin puts on the headset, naming Pat McAfee's parents, and this just riles up Cole, who is screaming that Corbin's parents would be embarrassed. And these fans ringside are chanting Michael Cole. And Pat then comes back later. He does this like the Shelton Benjamin, where he leaps to the top, but he lands on his knees and he's got to like regain his footing to complete this superplex. And Cole's just, he's got on his knees, and he did salvage it. What I have learned here is that Pat can be in the most awkward of positions, but man, this guy will complete the move. It might not look pretty, but he'll get it done at the end. Mm-hmm. So then we had the scariest moment where this dude looked like a guy that's had about 12 drinks at the end of the night that's just trying to walk out of the bar. He's on top of the turnbuckle and he's like rickety. He's going all over the place, and he somehow gets enough stability to leap off the turnbuckle for a swanton. This looks scary as hell. The Swanton Bambini, as it's been named.
Swanton Bambini. Okay.
This is what Michael Cole said he is calling it. This dude, he was very lucky. Like he did not have two stable legs underneath him.
You know, I don't know if like Pat McAfee is going to be in the video game. I would assume he is next year. I hope they animate this swanton, like complete with the teetering and his arms moving everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, for a guy that like stands a lot, I mean, you would think like he's, you know.
You think his balance would be great?
Yeah, I thought he had like put on like skates or something here on this top.
I thought the teetering actually kind of helped. Like it gave us a bit of context to say that this is not a guy who usually does this. He's normally a commentator, and not everything is going to look super smooth. But
I was worried this man was about to land on his head, so I was happy that he completed this. Pat avoids the end of days. Corbin knocks down Charles Robinson, and Pat kicks Corbin low as payback for the SmackDown, and then he hit the world's worst Panama Sunrise. If this was a sunrise you saw, this is not a postcard that you're sending home. Okay. 10 minutes, 39 seconds. He pins Corbin. And then afterwards, Graves tells him, "You were lucky." And he gives him the suck it sign. He claps hands here with Michael Cole. And then he has a beer ringside with some guy.
Was he going for a Panama, like a Canadian destroyer, or was it supposed to be a code red? Because he like it definitely looked like he was. It ended up being a very ugly code red.
I mean that's essentially what it was. It was the Adam Cole callback.
Sunrise is like a in front of the arms, in front of the shoulders. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. It did not look great.
And dude, it looked nothing close to great. It looked brutal.
Yeah. It was definitely maybe the ugliest Pat McAfee match we've seen of the 3 that we've seen up until this point.
Of like yeah, definitely.
This
I will say this was not worse than the Vince McMahon match.
Oh yeah, I'm not even including that.
No, it was technically a match. This was nowhere near that. That's in a whole different category of bad. But this was like it was very rough. People love Pat McAfee. It's not like the crowd was not into this. And with Pat, he's going to get more leeway. But I mean, this was not smooth. I think you'd be crazy to camouflage it as such.
It was not smooth. I will, however, though, like I do feel like crowd reaction trumps like how pretty a match looks. Like, you know, hardcore wrestling fans are the ones that are going to care most about how flawless and how technical the moves look. But I think your general audience is just going to get excited about seeing this guy doing this stuff. And
let's rewind though. Okay. If Logan Paul came up short on that splash and it was just a total mess, would we be giving him points for trying that? It's like, it was the precision and the fact he hit it that gained him that applause. So I think we have to be fair when these are tried and they fail at the same time.
Agreed, but we should also be fair in describing the crowd reactions that they each came into the match with. Pat McAfee is somebody who already has the crowd. Everybody seems to love this guy, and he had everybody engaged throughout the entire thing. And despite some ugly looking moves in this thing, crowd still went nuts for every single.
Like his matches are designed to be like a party. It's just like this guy, like he's got some of the like the Sandman appeal to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a significantly better athlete than the Sandman, but nonetheless, it's like an audience that they just want to see like a video game with Pat McAfee as the star.
Yeah, it is definitely a bizarre period we're in, where like celebrities There are multiple celebrity matches on the show, and they're not bad. Like, it's at the point now where, like, you can tell me Pat McAfee versus Logan Paul is coming up on a pay-per-view, and I wouldn't completely cringe at it. Like, I'd be, in fact, a little bit curious in a non-ironic way about that match actually being quite good, because you would know that they would get a ton of help in putting it together. They would really rehearse the hell out of it. And you're talking about very high-level athletes who are taking wrestling training very seriously. So
they take it very seriously, but I also feel that there's something to it being novel, that you're not doing this every month, that Pat McAfee doing 2 matches a year, and it feels special when he does it, and it works. You're not going to overstay that welcome at the same time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. In the future, do you think we still get this sort of like doubleheader with Pat McAfee and Logan Paul on the same show, or do they continue to maybe split duties here and there? On WrestleMania, you would expect each of them being on.
Well, that's night. It. I think you reserve this for big shows, and yeah, I could certainly see them being on cards together. Yeah. Drew McIntyre is introduced, and he comes out, and he just notes that he lives here in Nashville, which is hilarious because he was doing all this promotion for the show because he lives there, and he's not even booked on the card. So he comes out and he states like what a hard match it was with Sheamus, but he loves this. He calls out this fan in the front row, so everyone chants Colt at this fan. And he says the main event's going to be a battle. He doesn't care who wins. He's winning the titles at Clash at the Castle. And he raised the sword as the pyro went off for him. It wasn't the most wild pyro display, but something went off. And that was it. I was glad they got him on this show because he is going to be such a major focus of your next show.
Yeah. Yeah, they gave a lot of time for like the non-matches on this show. And do you find that as just a way to like give people presents, or do you think that there is some sort of mandate to drag the show out a little bit longer beyond like the in-ring content?
I don't know if it's necessarily they wanted to drag this out. I think that's just it's kind of just the way the show is structured, with like so many of these video packages, some of which like they're tied to that are just there. Like, but they have all these.
They would have put filler matches to pad this show out.
Yeah, and I prefer this format, to be quite honest, where it's like it feels like the matches have importance to them, and we're not just like loading this to get every last person on the card. And with Drew McIntyre, like I think that's someone, this is a big show, and at least showcase him because this is your big challenger next month. The Usos against the Street Profits for the tag titles, with Jeff Jarrett coming out. He did not get the biggest pop of. He kind of just came
he
out.
Didn't.
It was just like it was like any other city. Like, yeah, nothing wrong with it, dude. For you can look up his age. He looks in great shape. He has gotten ready for this weekend.
Yeah, this dude works out. I mean, so much respect for people who are able to stay in shape like that. It's it's that referee shirt, Yeah,
well, that he's got to wear everywhere he goes.
Trim. He
55.
looks good in the referee shirt.
Yes. Are you going to watch any of that show tomorrow night, the Flair show?
Oh man, the undercard looks good, but I really don't want to be interested in the main event. I might catch some highlights here and there on Twitter, but that might be at the extent of it for me. You? So,
I won't be watching it live because I got to be recording at that time, but I'll probably catch at least bits and pieces of it. I thought the entrances here were really great, in particular the Street Profits. You had the Tennessee Titans cheerleaders come out, followed by the Profits, who were in the Titans colors, and this has felt like a cool entrance incorporating the cheerleaders.
It was, yeah. I mean, anytime they do this with the local stadium teams, cheerleaders. The cheerleaders come as part of the building package. Yeah.
So they have the advantage on Dawkins. It's a slow start until Ford gets the tag, and Dawkins returns moments later with a Tope Con Hero into both Usos and hits a silencer on Jimmy for a 2 count. They did this double team spot where Dawkins hit a pounce to Jimmy, who went into midair and was caught with a German suplex by Ford. And Michael Cole keeps noting how Jarrett is always in the right position. He's calling it right down the middle, and that Jarrett is being a great referee. Dawkins is hit with several super kicks, including a double super kick, and then an Uso splash, then a double one, and Ford makes the save. Jay then goes for a super kick, missing Ford, and nearly hits Jeff, who catches the super kick. And we see from the heavens delivered by Ford onto Jay, but he has a delayed cover. And when he finally gets on top, Jarrett counts 2, and we get the kick out, and Montez Ford cannot believe it. And for all the complaints sometimes of the quick cuts and the production, I thought the way they focused on Montez Ford and had his facial reactions in these last few minutes were really great and emphasized the story, because he looked like he was just great in terms, like he could not believe that Jarrett didn't count 3, and he starts complaining to him. And then Ford's dive to the floor gets stopped when the Usos catch him with super kicks, send him into the barricade, and then they double team Dawkins with double super kick and the 1D, and that's where they pin Dawkins as Ford is too late to get back into the ring for the save. It goes 13 minutes and 23 seconds. And it ends with a great visual of the Usos celebrating on the aisle, and the Prophets are just sitting there in the ring looking so despondent. And I thought this turned out really well. I wouldn't say this was at the level of their last match, but for the story coming out of this, I thought in particular Montez Ford was great in this closing sequence, and really kind of sets this up that this feels like this is the end of the Street Profits, or at least a major barrier in their continuation as a team. Like, this felt like it's game over.
I agree with you that I don't think this match exceeded the Money in the Bank match for me either.
No.
And perhaps, we've just kind of grown accustomed to a certain level and a certain high standard for these two teams at this point. I'm gonna have to maybe get you to explain this closing angle a little bit more, because I didn't really connect with me as much as it seemed to do with you, because Ford was pissed off at the count, but it was a very normal count. So what was he upset
about? Yeah. I didn't take it as though this was like Ford was justified in his complaint. I think he was just more airing his frustration that he thought he had the pinfall, but he kicked out, like he couldn't beat him. And I think he just took his frustration out on Jarrett, and it was just the realization, we can't beat this team.
Got it. Okay. So
that's how I interpreted it. Yeah. Like, I didn't view this. This was not Jarrett being heelish in any way. It was, if anything, it was Montez Ford coming across as being the heelish one.
Because I read it as him somehow being mad at Jarrett for not counting fast enough. But maybe your interpretation makes a bit more sense. But I'm very curious to see what happens coming out of the Profits, here. We thought that the turn was going to happen a lot sooner than this, and it didn't. This time around, after SummerSlam, I don't know how much further they can really go with this feud, so maybe we finally get it.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting, because Montez Ford is someone that people have had, a spotlight on for a long time. Dude, Angelo Dawkins has improved a lot too. Like, I think this guy doesn't get enough credit for where he's come, and I do not write him off as a lost cause if this team breaks up.
Who would you turn?
I'd kind of like to see Montez Ford as starting things off as a heel, because I think long term he's going to be a top babyface for this company, but I think going through a heel run first might be the direction to go.
It's so unnatural, because I don't like using this term because I don't think this person deserves it. But if you're to pick a Jannetty and a Shawn, obviously Ford is the one that gets the most focus. So therefore, maybe you turn him into Shawn. Maybe you turn him into the
is Dawkins going through a window?
Maybe he's got Jannetty genetics.
Well, we will see.
Yeah.
So story-wise,
I'd saving Dawkins, I think, giving him relevance by baby facing him perhaps, but it would be tough hill to climb, I would say, for him.
So they thanked Kid Rock for his song that here in the post Vince McMahon era, the first song for the pay-per-view was called Shakedown, and Kid Rock is there in attendance, and he starts making out with this woman next to him, and then gives the camera the middle finger, and they cut to black. This was I feel Fred Durst did this once, where he gave the middle finger when he was on camera, and they don't like that.
You can't show the middle finger on WWE TV?
They cut the black when he did it.
Oh, you can't show that on Peacock? Really?
I don't know what their standards are. And with that, we cut to the ring, and Riddle storms the ring, noting he's not medically cleared, but Randy Orton told him not to take crap from anyone. and that means Seth Rollins. And he calls him out. And this was a much more serious Riddle in his delivery. And Rollins comes out. The officials are trying to stop him, but he makes his way down to the ring, and then he proceeds to just take out Riddle with a stomp. And the crowd's humming his theme song again. So no sympathy here for Riddle as he got his head bashed in for the second time in a week. And that was it. Kind of called his bluff, and Rollins answered.
So, no surprise opponent for Rollins, like nothing like that. They strictly.
I think they're just holding off this match. Like, I think they realized that, maybe they timed out the show or they felt like, Wales needs a bigger match, and why are we doing this now?
Well, it couldn't have been a timing issue. They could have easily scrapped this segment as well as the Drew segment if they wanted to fit something in. I consider it an interesting philosophical change because in the past, I think they would have burned this first match together here, and then they would have just had some bullshit finish to get to the rematch at Clash of the Castle if they wanted to have this match at Clash of the Castle.
Well, they obviously felt like, well, we don't want this match this Sunday or Saturday, so we want it for next month. So why do it here?
I hope this is an indicator that we're going to see far less rematches in this new regime than we have in the past. Because
I think it's almost inevitable that there's. To me, I just don't think you can continue. Like, it was almost laughable. Like, you literally had the New Day making jokes about it on television about how you're just stuck in place doing the same matches every week. Like, I just don't think you would actively have to decide that we're just going to do rematch after rematch after rematch to replicate what they're inheriting here. It's like there's so many places of just instant improvement by just doing the bare minimum.
All you're doing it is so transparent what they attempt to do. They're trying to, get your audience to pay attention here. We're going to do this match. Then you take out the finish so that you could just dangle the same carrot, in front of us the next time around. And all it does is make your audience pissed off, and it downgrades the quality and the perception of quality of your product. So hopefully, I much prefer this where they just took the match away completely, even giving us a bullshit injury angle. Fine. Just don't give us the match and just give it to us when you're actually going to promise that it's going to be there.
Yeah. Like, why did this show need to have a match that had some kind of non-finish or something that's going against the opposite of the opener, something that makes the fans happy? Why are we going to actively put something on there that's going to make the fans unhappy when it doesn't need to? It's not like this is a big heavy heat angle. It's just, how do we get out of this match to prolong it another month? So let's just cut out the middle. Liv Morgan against Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. This is where the attendance jumped by 5,000, according to Michael Cole. And they note that only Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Liv Morgan have ever pinned Ronda Rousey. So Liv Morgan looking to beat her twice in 1 month. So Liv early on hits a code breaker and goes for Oblivion, but it's blocked. And Rousey, her whole strategy is getting Liv's arm and ripping it off. And Liv would constantly defend. She countered into a Rings of Saturn, hit her with a crucifix bomb, and then Rousey just gives her this big judo throw, holds onto the arm. She's healing at the crowd, and then applies it as Liv reaches the rope. She then throws Liv, reapplies it, but again, Liv is able to flip over and make it to the rope. And referee Dan Engler is asking Liv if he should stop the match, but she wants to continue. The trainer's checking on her. Cole's yelling she's got one arm to try and beat Ronda Rousey with. And Rousey goes into the corner, flying head scissors into an armbar, and she's got the armbar off her back with her shoulders down, and the referee counts her shoulders down in 4 minutes and 35 seconds. This was the Daniel Puder Kurt Angle finish, where this was, for those that were not watching at the time, in 2004, they did a Tough Enough segment where Kurt Angle challenged any of them to come in and basically have like a legit grappling match with him on television. And they got Daniel Puder, and Puder, who was a guy that was training with AKA at the time and with Frank Shamrock, knew what he was doing, and he went and got a key lock on Kurt Angle.
Come on.
And he's got the Kimura applied, and Jimmy Corderas is just thinking on his feet and sees that Puder's shoulders are down, so he counts 3 to pretty much save Kurt Angle here, because Kurt was gonna have to tap out. This thing was locked,
and he was not going to tap.
It probably would have like torn his arm. Would have been the other option here, but this was the finish, and they used it all like 18 years later.
I think logical when you're talking about somebody with an armbar as a finish, right? But sure, yeah. What a ridiculous idea that was. Just reminding us about that whole ridiculous tough enough thing, and anyway, that is the stuff of legend. Maybe we'll see covered in the A&E special.
It'd be interesting if they covered that. It was like Daniel Puder really ran with that, and at one time, like when Kurt left WWE and people didn't know about him going to TNA, that was the fight that Dana White was trying to put together. It was like getting Kurt to come to the UFC and he would fight Daniel Puder.
I might still have my I Hurt Kurt shirt somewhere that he gave
probably
to a bunch
have one
of us.
too that he sent to a bunch of us. Yes, I Hurt Kurt.
Anyway, back to this match.
Yeah. So that all said, this was very poorly received by people. Michael Cole called it a bad call, and then afterwards, Rousey attacks Liv Morgan, reapplying the armbar, and then throws Dan Engler and puts him in the armbar. And the idea here is that Liv escaped with the title, but she was totally dominated by Ronda Rousey. In some ways, this was kind of built up very similar to the Juliana Pena Amanda Nunes fight tonight. Little different, but nonetheless, that was sort of the idea.
Did you watch it? How much of the UFC have you seen?
I saw nothing. I was watching this all night, so I haven't seen any of it. I've got the results though.
We will have a post show tomorrow though.
Yes, Sunday at 2 Eastern. Phil Chertok and Eric Marcotte will have a full post show. Yes, which, I mean, tonight, Amanda Nunes regained the title in the main event. They went 5 rounds.
Back to this match.
Okay, back to this match. Yeah, people like hated this. It seemed like. I did not hate this. I could see it was certainly a groan-inducing finish, and to me, though, it was extending the story of what they had already said. And you can certainly argue it's not been the most flattering story for Liv, that she's this undeserving champion that has now twice, like, pretty much lucked into leaving as champion, and that Ronda Rousey people still view as the better of the two, which to me can pay off if Liv finally gets her big win over Ronda Rousey. But I never expected them to do that here. In fact, I was thinking Rousey would win back the title here, and that would kind of cement her as a heel. But what did you think about this and how it was handled?
Well, going back to what we were just talking about them not putting Rollins versus Riddle on this show, potentially for fear of just giving us a bullshit finish to get to a rematch. I feel like that's exactly what they did here. I mean, not to say this was that much of a bullshit finish, okay? Because it's one that is very credible. It can occur in real life. Like I can buy it. But if this
it was designed certainly to protect Ronda, but not take the title off Liv.
Yeah. And if this is their way of getting to a rematch, I groan at that, because is my interest increased for a rematch coming off of this? The answer is no. This match had Liv Morgan do nothing to show me that she deserves any of my support for wanting to cheer for her as a babyface. She was decimated in this match by Ronda Rousey, and it only bolsters her perception as a paper champion coming off of Money in the Bank. This is the problem they have with a good majority of their Money in the Bank winners. Austin Theory is going to go through the same thing whenever he gets the title by bullshit means, if he gets the title at this point. It's just like it is disappointing, and I think so much of your expectations, John, or maybe your viewing of this as something that's maybe a bit more positive, is the hope that Liv Morgan ultimately gets that story. I'm not as optimistic. I don't think over the course of a month they're going to suddenly have Liv Morgan rack up so many wins and gain so much in experience that she's going to be competitive with Ronda Rousey. I think the next time around she's likely to luck in.
Well, I'll tell you this as well, Wade. Like, if you're coming out of this and Ronda, if you view this as her heel turn at the end of this, and you're building to another match, I don't think I'd be advocating for Ronda to lose her first big match as a heel either. So she beating Liv, that to me is kind of, now you've set the pieces where that's where, as a fan, you write off Liv at that point, and that's you don't take her seriously anymore. So they may have backed themselves into a corner here where it's either you have a solid heel in Ronda Rousey, or you have Liv that you kind of have to take the title off of, and then she really becomes this forgettable champion that had a joke of a reign that backdoored her way into winning the title, and then found lightning struck twice, and she was able to retain the title once.
Yeah, and at that point, she would become no better than a Nikki Ash, who in a year's time we've completely forgotten used to be a former champion. This to me hints towards, unfortunately, that pattern, and she was given nothing here. I thought this was going to be an opportunity to show that she would at least be somewhat competent. She'd somehow be able to use some sort of skill and smarts to perhaps actually get some sort of credible, even if albeit a bit fluky, win over Ronda. But they gave her no offense whatsoever. She did show toughness and a refusal to tap, I suppose, but it was not enough. And judging by this crowd reaction, that was the most concerning part of all. Liv Morgan, who I think going back to Money in the Bank, everybody was so incredibly happy and wanting her to win that. In this match, crowd was not into her at all. She got no support. And I think for me, at least, a big part of that is because they've given her zero credibility.
Well, maybe on SmackDown, we're going to see Liv Morgan call up a now fellow champion, and she's going to rely on Amanda Nunes for some strategy.
That would be the way to do it.
To fight Ronda in the third match. We'll see. I like Ronda in this more aggressive heel role. I think it's so much better suited for her at this point. I would like them to continue this direction. I saw that as a positive. And to be quite honest, if they're not going to go with Liv, then put the title on the person that you are pushing the most. And if that's Ronda as a heel, that might be a lot more interesting. You've just, granted it's on the Raw side, but there's a lot of baby faces that Ronda can work with that you can mix and match.
There's no doubt, but come WrestleMania or even like Royal Rumble, you're going to default back to Ronda Rousey. She's going to be in one of those headlining matches simply because
they've turned Becky now. Like that, to me, that totally aligns. Like on the same night that Becky turns babyface, we pretty much see Ronda turn heel, which are the roles they should be in for that match next year.
Agreed. But the disappointment is that by that point, you would have wasted whatever organic interest there would have been in potentially ascending Liv Morgan to a Becky Lynch level, to a Sasha level, to a, even, I don't know.
They definitely had something with Liv. They've had it for months that you could see the audience wanted to get behind her, and Money in the Bank, they did. I am still remaining optimistic because this is a test of this new creative direction. If this was 2 months ago, I think I'd be much more in your camp that this was a disaster, and I've given up on Liv because there's no coming back from this.
Honestly, it's even tougher now because Liv Morgan was never a Triple H candidate, or at least, of course, she came through the system, but she was never being given a prime role in the NXT women's division. She was certainly never being even considered for a championship run, especially now when you have people like Io Shirai, Bayley back in here, potentially Naomi, and potentially Sasha even coming back. Well, where does that leave?
Well, we'll see. We'll see, right? Because they very easily could have come in with that idea that if, hey, we don't have anything, Liv Morgan wasn't our choice. We're turning Ronda. Let's get the belt back on Ronda and start from scratch. They didn't do that. So
yeah, that's true.
This follow-up will be one to watch for sure. And then Mayor Kane was brought into the ring to announce the attendance of 48,449, and he was not met positively.
I couldn't really tell. Like, it seemed like the live reaction was positive for him, was it not?
Oh, I was on Twitter.
No.
Where the man has made quite the spectacle of himself routinely. So I don't think there's any sympathy there. Main event time. I don't even know how we're going to run through this. Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar in the most insane WWE spectacle that they have maybe ever produced. A last man standing match for the Undisputed Universal Championship. Reigns and the Bloodline make their entrance, and then Lesnar comes out and he walks over by the entrance area, and this happens to be a tractor, just in case. You never know when you might need a tractor, and you leave the keys in for the guy to be able to commandeer. So he puts on his flannel shirt and drives the tractor up to the ring, and then he climbs into the loader and then cuts off Mike Rome so he can do his own introduction as a big-ass country boy here to kick Roman Reigns' ass. And then Lesnar leaps out of the loader onto Reigns to start the match, and that definitely did set the tone.
The visual from the moment that we saw this guy, first of all, like drive the tractor and then get on top of it as they're doing the in-ring introductions with Paul, like with Brock Lesnar standing in the scoop of the tractor. It was incredible. Like it really was. This was
Everything about this was the visual of it.
Yeah, completely.
Like there were just
and Brock Lesnar's, pretty I would say pretty good tractor driving skills. I was impressed.
Dude, there was no one on this show who had a greater level of trust in his colleague than Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Nowhere close.
Yeah.
So we will get into all of this. So it begins. They fight into the crowd. They go onto the staging area by a metal truss. Lesnar leaps onto the barricade on the way back, and he slips and does a quick recovery and nails Reigns with German suplexes on the floor, sets up a table, and then Heyman is begging off, telling Lesnar, "I've always loved you." And it leads to Reigns hitting him with a Samoan drop through a table, and then chokeslams Lesnar through another table, hits him with a pair of Superman punches and a spear, but Lesnar gets to his feet. And Lesnar goes back to the tractor, lowers the loader, and blasts Reigns with the steps. He's then using part of the table as a weapon. Reigns gets up. He tosses Reigns into the loader. He then lifts the loader up and dumps Reigns into the ring. And I thought this part was nuts. I mean, it was a relatively routine little pratfall for Roman Reigns. Like, it's not this big fall, but dude, at the same time, it's like, these guys are not stuntmen, and it's like, what could have potentially gone wrong? You know what I mean?
Just to see a human in this, like monstrous piece of heavy machinery, and just
like, what if something goes wrong? He just
TV.
jams something. It's like, and this is before we get to the part where he's elevating objects. Like,
dude, I know. Like, again, it takes an incredible amount of trust, I'm sure, in Brock Lesnar. I really wonder what sort of rehearsal they could have gone through for this particular match, because a lot of these spots you only had one take for, like one in particular, of course. So it was crazy. Yeah.
So he dumps Lesnar into the ring from the loader, and then proceeds with more Germans and an F5. But Reigns gets up. He goes for the guillotine. Lesnar turns it into his own. Reigns is up, and then Lesnar gets into the tractor again, and this time he lowers it, and he starts to shift the ring over. Cole and Graves are screaming because the ring is literally coming towards them. It's moved across the floor, and then he uses the loader to tip the ring up. It elevates off of the floor. Reigns is in the ring, and he rolls out. This was fucking crazy.
It was the craziest visual I have ever seen of a professional wrestling ring in this state.
This being Roman Reigns, a man who made the determination, this workplace is not safe right now during this pandemic. I'm going home.
Yeah.
How about we get Brock 15 minutes into a match to lift up a ring? You're going to be in it, and you're just going to tumble down to the floor. I'm sure it'll go great. And listen, it looks like it went fine, but dude, this was an ungodly amount of ambition and trust, and I wasn't necessarily comfortable watching this. Like, it looks like everything went fine. There were no hiccups in all of this, but my God, like, you're doing this live. These are untrained stuntmen, and you're doing pretty much like a movie scene here, a pretty advanced one.
Completely, yeah. I would love to know how this was suggested.
You had fans at ringside here. Like, it's just, there's a lot of variables here. I mean,
how was this walked through? How was this determined to be safe? What sort of insurance people had to be around to dictate that this was okay, and that you weren't putting other people's lives in danger by doing this? What production?
Well, they consulted the mayor of Knox County and said, "What would we be facing?" Oh, just go for it.
No.
Here's
it's your right. You can do whatever you want. Freedom. Yeah, whatever. Like,
anyone who tells you no is showing weakness.
That's it. We got a bit
like the left. So Dude, this was nuts.
amazing,
Like this was
dude.
like an all-time unbelievable spectacle. I mean, it's one of those visuals that people will always associate with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns.
I tweeted this out earlier, but like, you know, we complain a lot about production in the WWE, particularly overproduction when it comes to, you know, shit like crazy camera cuts, cameras in places that doesn't need to be cameras, special VR graphics, you know, for Xia Li coming out, that might look a little bit cool, but then just feels completely like ridiculous after a few weeks. Birds coming out of Riddle's shoes. When they put their resources and their budget into spots like this instead of fucked up weird shit like sound effects and all that, this is when this show is great. This is when this company is great. You know, stuff like the beer truck, stuff like the milk truck, stuff like any form of truck. This company tends to do pretty well. And
this was a different level, though.
Different level, yeah.
Like go back seriously and watch as this ring, the elevation it gets, and Roman, like he has no control on where his body is going, what is going to land on the floor. Like he is just crossing his fingers that I'm going to have a safe roll down this ring to the floor uninterrupted. And I mean, it was, I could not imagine pitching this to this guy.
And just like, how much trust do you have Brock Lesnar? Do you have in Brock Lesnar like using this heavy piece of machinery? And evidently a whole lot, because
a man who's been known on live television to, out of frustration, fucking chuck a car door into the audience.
Well, it's that wild unpredictability that comes with Brock Lesnar that really makes him so special as a live performer, beyond just his incredible size and charisma. It's just like what he's able to do with it. And in this case, it had nothing to do with his size. It's just strictly his craziness. The man is crazy. And you know what? In this case, was able to execute that craziness flawlessly, I would say, in one of the craziest, best looking stunts I've ever seen in this company.
I can't remember where I read it, but someone was joking like it was how they got him back to SmackDown last week. They bought him a tractor. He gets to take this home. It was a joke, but I mean,
that's hilarious. That is great.
Anyway,
he gets to ride. Imagine like him like riding it home on the highway.
He just drives this from Nashville,
Saskatchewan,
checks it at the border. So it's just an unbelievable spectacle. And if you did not see this visual, like you will certainly see it. I mean, if they put this highlight on YouTube, just like the thumbnail, this will be
just the still shot of
insane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, crazy.
The Usos are out. Paul Heyman gives him the title, Lesnar the title, telling him just leave. Just leave my tribal chief alone. And this leads to Heyman taking an F5 through the desk. And then Reigns spears Lesnar. Both men are down. And Theory's music hits. He runs down. Cole is noting the precedent that Seth Rollins set. And he blasts Reigns with the briefcase. But then Lesnar F5's Theory on the floor. And that's the end of Theory. So he teased the cash in, but didn't actually cash in. The Usos super kick Lesnar. Lesnar's up at 9. There's a spear by Reigns, dropping Lesnar on top of the titles. Again, he beats the count. The crowd is all with this. Then Reigns destroys Lesnar using Theory's briefcase. Michael Cole is, if he does not have laryngitis after this event, nothing will. He was just, fuck my voice. I'm going to give the call of my lifetime here.
There's been a lot of discussion. I mean, once, the whole Vince thing was announced, there was a lot of increased interest in how that would affect the commentary team. Did you notice any difference to you about the calls tonight?
It definitely felt like Michael Cole, and maybe it's reading into it, he definitely had a looser feel. I mean, in this match, he's yelling out, "God damn!" He's joking about wanting to go out drinking with Corey Graves last night, but Corey's at home sleeping. There certainly was like a looseness, and I cannot fathom that Michael Cole doesn't feel like the weight of the world is out of his ears. Mm-hmm. Like how could you not feel that to go from it's been 25 years of this guy used to this, and now
but I imagine it's like phantom. It's
like white noise Vince. Probably. It's like it's probably
he probably like wakes up at night hearing, God damn it, say new and vicious. Don't you dare say belt.
Reigns, we could just go on and on about this. So Reigns continues to get up. Cole's yelling, he's bionic or something. And finally Reigns says, never come back. "You're not welcome here," as he hits him with the Universal title, and they bury Lesnar underneath chairs, the desk, steps, and Reigns stands on top of all this debris. They're yelling that Lesnar can't breathe, and Reigns wins the match in 22 minutes and 56 seconds. And Lesnar eventually rolls out of the all of this that he's buried underneath. Cole's yelling he's not human. The Usos carry Paul Heyman out. Dude, Paul Heyman was just fantastic to watch here. This man was down for like a count of 1,000. And then Reigns is just walking away unassisted. And the final shot is Reigns putting his 2 belts up. This crazy pyro and fireworks goes off. I think all those unvested shares that Vince had to turn over, that 2.7 million went into this pyro display at the end of this show, and Michael Cole calling it probably the greatest last man standing match ever. And that concluded SummerSlam at 3 hours and 40 minutes.
It was a crazy fucking match. Craziest last man standing match I've ever seen. And I would probably agree with Michael Cole. I don't think there was much hyperbole in that statement. It probably was the best last man standing match that I've ever seen. What else would be a candidate in your mind?
It's a list worth going through because there have been some great ones in WWE. Like, they are very good at laying out these matches.
Whether it's up to you right now,
Cena and Umaga comes to mind for me. That happened.
Was it this good?
I'd have to go. Like, listen, this to me was. I have a weird time calling this like an all-time great match. This was like such a spectacle is like the best word for it.
What is a match? But like,
well, that's what this was. Listen, this was phenomenal to watch. Like, this to me is going to be an all-time remembered match. And maybe there will be some people that at the end of the year, this is going to be one of their favorite matches of all time. Maybe.
You're right. It is a hard one to judge, especially for, I think, the hardcore wrestling fan who I think traditionally tends to favor work rate. This was not a work rate match. This was a spectacle match. But
this was a Jerry Bruckheimer film, okay? It's not winning the Oscar, but my God, was it 2 hours of explosions and crazy effects and CGI? Yes, and it was phenomenal. It was like the Top Gun of insane last man standing matches.
We have seen Brock versus Roman for what feels like a million times by this point. And
they've ended on the greatest note possible.
Well, what sort of wrinkle were they going to add to this one to make it different from all the others? And remember, this was not.
And they were coming off a really lackluster one at WrestleMania, I felt.
What was the original plan for this? Before Brock, Orton, right?
Yeah, it was Orton.
Yeah, God, I can't imagine what that would have been like. Anyway, in comparison to this, at least. So anyway,
hey, Randy, remember a couple years ago at SummerSlam, we asked Brock to like drill your forehead open. Well, this time we want to use I know it would be Roman that he would be facing, not Brock, but it's like we want to use a tractor and dump you into the ring. We're gonna lift the ring up with you in it.
Better yet, put Randy in the tractor. See how that goes.
Oh, okay.
God. But, like, what were they going to do to make this one different from the rest? Turns out a tractor was the answer, okay? You throw a tractor in between these two, and you're going to end up with a completely different match. And really, I'm joking, but, like, it turns out the last man standing stipulation ended up being a really great way to take, these sort of explosive, spamming finishers type of, like, style that these two had developed up until this point, and somehow turn that into, something that was a bit more paced, but still built drama, but also gave you an excuse to continue to one-up the ridiculousness of these finishers to the point where we're using vehicles now. We're tipping rings over. We're just like throwing every crazy idea we have in there. But the key, and I think the thing that deserves the most respect was the perfect execution of these tremendously dangerous stunts.
Oh, there was a lot of danger. There was a high danger quotient in this match, and I don't really want to see people watch this and be inspired. That's like, we have to top this. I don't know
how somebody would. It would take a great deal of money. No independent wrestling promotion is just gonna. I would hope not that they would just hire a tractor to try shit like this.
Well, I mean, it's like you introduce this stuff, much like, when people that grew up and saw Mankind dive off the cell, and it was like, you have to top it, and you've got Shane diving off of cells.
See, this requires money, though. Like, how many times have we seen like them do the WWE? They constantly do that, or a few times they've done the ring collapsing involving Brock and Big Show the first time. How many indies have been able to replicate that? Some things you just can't do unless.
Well, I'm not. I'm talking even like in WWE of doing more stuff like this. I just think like this does open it, and you cannot deny this is probably what like 99% positively received by people. It was like, how could you not? Like this was an utter spectacle from start to finish, and people are raving about this. And the natural becomes like it worked, and when something works in wrestling, you try to heighten it.
It's true, yeah.
And it's like these are like. These are humans. These are not stuntmen. And I always go back to that Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Talk Is Jericho show that they did, reflecting on that Hell in a Cell that they did with Shane McMahon, and just like the inches that if they were off, like it's like we're not stuntmen, and yet we're doing things that are like that would be you would need to be licensed, that you would have to have qualifications to be able to pull off. And pro wrestlers are like, yeah, that's something we come up with, and we're going to do it live in front of an audience.
I will say though, I would take Brock Lesnar lifting me up while I was in the middle of a ring and me gently rolling over to the side. I would take that any day over jumping off of the Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, I will push back a little on the term gently. Like it was, dude, he was down. Like he was rolling down and could have like landed on his head for all we knew on the bottom there. Listen, it was tremendous, but it was also I'm glad everyone was okay by the end of this whole thing.
Yeah, certainly. I would love to know the behind the scenes. I know they don't really do that sort of thing in the WWE, but like, God, someday, you know, I'd love a Brock Lesnar.
A&E will get the rights to this Rivals episode down the road.
Yeah.
Anyway,
hell of a way to go out on this show.
I thought this was a really great show. Like I give it a thumbs up show. I think it was like a really well put together show. I think there's a lot of interest coming out of it, not just for the changes that are going on, but just as a show on its own. Like if this had happened, under like there was no creative changes, I still think this was like a really positively received show. The main event was spectacular. I thought a lot on the show delivered. Not everything did, but what didn't, I still think got elevated by an overall opinion on the show that people were in a pretty good mood watching this show, and they just kind of took it all in as a really entertaining start to finish show, depending on whatever variances there were on some of the matches.
A total thumbs up show for me. And I think it was, highlighted by two bookends that we'll probably end up remembering the most. In a very good opening match between Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, worthy of, I think, being compared to, in your opinion, John, better than the WrestleMania match. But more importantly, giving you tremendous hope and surprise with the closing angle involving those three returns / debuts, and future direction and future optimism for this women's division that has been centered around, a few principal players for far too long. And then ending with one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in this television show. You can't, like, those two things alone, I think would be enough. But then the middle of the show, I thought was very entertaining as well. You can argue about the build. We're always disappointed in the build. But if the wrestling content is good, I tend to forget a whole lot of it, and history will as well. Logan Paul, I thought, put in a tremendous performance. Pat McAfee, not the cleanest match, but crowd response was very good for it. Everything else was good to inoffensive, with the exception of maybe Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey, which to me was the weakest point of the show, because I don't think they achieved their aim of generating more interest in a rematch between the two. I certainly don't think it did Liv Morgan any favors, but of course it did set up a Ronda Rousey heel turn, which will be very important. Yeah.
I think that it was when you're talking about that match, the weakest stuff that you could say on the show, like Theory and Lashley was just what it was. But I mean, that match and the Ronda Liv match, you're talking under 5 minutes that those matches took place. So I think it's not going to be as big of a detriment to some. But yeah, I would say that would be maybe on the low side with the Rousey Liv. I wasn't as big into the McAfee Corbin match, but to your point, like it got over with the audience, and that ultimately is what you are aiming for. So yeah, it was a thumbs up show. I think that a lot of people were very high on the show, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, at this point, we are going to say goodbye to John, and I'm going to say goodbye to John because this will be the last show that I'm doing with him for quite a while because I'm off to my paternity leave after tonight. So, John, thank you ahead of time for the incredible amount of work you're about to embark on as you continue to embark on every single day on the site. And I want to thank everybody in advance who will be joining us, in my place throughout a number of our shows. What else is coming up this week?
I'll be back Sunday night with Karen Peterson. We're doing a G1 podcast show, so look out for that. PostWrestlingCafe.com. It is a new month coming up, so we will be covering the G1 right through the ending on August the 18th. And then Monday night, I am back with Andrew Thompson for Rewind to Raw, so you can look forward to that over the next 2 nights. And Wei, I'll chat with you in a month.
See you later. All right, everybody, just me and you. And the feedback. So at this point, if you're a double ice cap or a special patron, you should have the link to call in and you can get your thoughts on the show. You can also send in a super chat if you would like me to read it. And this show comes to us sponsored not only by our Post Wrestling Cafe patrons, by Simon Todd, Uncle D from the Cho, who sends $20 as well as 2 other $5 super chats, mainly asking about the UFC. And that's why I asked John if he'd seen the UFC. He had not. So I'm not going to read those ones, but I will read this one. This is Uncle D from the Cho. Congrats to Wei and welcome back, John. How did the OSHA allow this match? Vince forever. That, of course, being the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I have no idea. I would love to know. Part of me wonders how much clearance was necessarily had for a man lifting a wrestling ring with a forklift. Thank you so much for the support, Uncle D from the Cho, and we'd love hearing from you as always. Let's go to a first call here. We got Hansi. Hansi, welcome to the show. It's just me and you.
What's going on? Dude, man, what the call this? I hope John is, gearing himself up for a month, man. I know that guy deals with a lot, so all the power to him and all that. But I gotta say, man, this show absolutely sucked. No, I'm joking. No, this show was it was pretty good. Like, thing is, like, I was not looking forward to this show at all because of the build. But like I always state when these pay-per-views happen, that if you watch it as a one-off, these shows are always like amazing. So if you're someone that watches this one-off a month, you probably don't even think that WWE is like that bad, like that everyone says, because you're not watching it weekly. I just hope the follow-up, like this is always the case. Like the show's good. I hope the follow-up is good, but there's things to look forward to with Io Shirai or Io Sky, and like that was a really pleasant surprise. I would say that the best matches were probably the opening match, and I thought the main event was probably like really good. Probably the second best Roman Reigns, and I still lean towards the first match they had at WrestleMania 31 as being like one of their best. I know people were hating on that one, and people always kind of like dismiss it, but I think if you go back and watch that one's actually like one of their best ones that they've ever done. And I gotta say, like, I've never really been a fan of a lot of their matches. They've reached like Austin and Undertaker level. Cause I never really thought Undertaker and Austin had never been strong together in matches. Right? So I thought this was really amazing. I noticed in the beginning even that like that the Raw commentary team were like I thought it was like Excalibur in these guys, because they're actually naming moves. Like I never really heard them often name moves and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought it was I just thought it was a really good pay-per-view. And I just want to say, what's it called before I go away? What's it called? I'm gonna miss you for a month, bro. Congratulations on everything. You're going to be a good father. You and your wife, I met her one time. You're guys are going to be great parents. So all the best to you, man. And just don't worry about this wrestling shit. And I promise, if Pollock's watching later on, I won't bother Pollock too much or anything like that. So Wade, take care, bro. And I'm going to miss you, man. Peace out.
Thank you so much, Hansi. I'll miss the constant calls from you as well. And don't worry, like Pollock will be more than happy, I'm sure, to speak with you, as will all of our guest hosts, I'm sure. A constant presence that we enjoy in the show, Hansi. So thank you for that.
Take it easy, bro.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like Hansi brought up a lot of the possible changes here with the commentary team, and so much of it, I don't know if it's just because I've learned to tune out wrestling commentary, at least WWE commentary for the most part, but it's not something I'm necessarily paying attention to see if there are differences or not. So maybe that's something I will do like in the weeks ahead, especially when I come back a full month from now to notice if there's any discernible differences. Some of it is relatively subtle that I don't know how much of us can really figure out until maybe something happens or something is said that is that much more of a special case. So in Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar is a match that we have certainly seen a whole lot of, and that is why today's iteration was so much more impressive to me, because they managed to find a different wrinkle. It's one thing to like have a first match be very impressive, but it's another when you've already seen the match a number of times to make it fresh again and to reinvent it somehow. And they managed to do that with this stipulation because they took the ridiculousness and the incredible feats of production to a different level. So thank you for that, Hansi. We get a super chat here from Slim Sieber, who sends $5. Thank you, Slim Sieber, for the super chat. He says, love to post. Early congrats on the new arrival way. Enjoy your paternity leave. Thank you so much for that, Slim. Much appreciated. At this point, we go to forum.postwrestling.com, where all of our patrons get a chance to leave their feedback to any of our shows that we do live here. So first, we go to Manny from Pacoima, who says, first things first, I can't believe I drink the same type of water as the maximum male models. SummerSlam was really good. The stadiums make the shows feel bigger and important. The main event was a spectacle, and I give props to those involved in putting the match together as it was a very fun watch. Michael Cole pleading the ref to count faster added to the match. Brock lifting the ring was bonkers. And towards the end of the match, the crowd was completely behind Brock as he kept beating the count over and over. The Raw Women's title match was great as well. And from the conclusion came a face turn and 3 returns, adding more breadth to the women's division. Edge returned and looked like a rock star. I give SummerSlam an 8 out of 10. Lastly, Way, enjoy your time off and congratulations once again. I can't wait for the Mysterious vignettes to start airing during the review shows, signaling your return. Just don't turn heel on John. Yeah, we're getting those ready right now. I've been, getting my red leather jacket ready. I'm slicking back my hair, growing it out, and then cutting it short, and then, spraying down an alleyway so I can walk through with various props representing various people of the post-wrestling universe. So thank you so much for that, Manny. Okay, Review a Stank says, as somebody who always hates on WWE because it consistently insults the intelligence of fans and is loaded with bad childish humor, I've taken to Way's advice from months ago of strictly just watching PLEs. This event had my interest because, like most people, I love the Triple H NXT takeovers. They were can't miss. I don't feel like I wasted my time tonight, and I actually look forward to the next one. Not everything landed, but it doesn't have to. It just has to make sense. I saw 3 or 4 visuals in the main event that actually made me laugh pretty hard. And Logan Paul was simply incredible. I almost fear that Logan is too good and they're going to load up on celebrities now, thinking more is better. I actually chose to stay home and watch this over meeting friends for UFC, which is rare, but like we say for AEW, they have earned the fans' trust. In my eyes, WWE did a pretty good job of earning back mine tonight. Not enough to watch the TV, but enough for me to log on here tonight and give credit where credit is due. Thanks, guys. Thank you for that review of Stank. I think it, again, was incredibly important that this show, under what is perceived to be a new regime, even though Triple H is, finishing up a lot of Vince storylines, it was so important for them to deliver, just to kind of build on that optimism that, a lot of people went to Monday with and were disappointed by. This was going to be the most viewed thing, that Triple H would have been a part of since technically taking control of the show over the past month over the past week. And it had to be good, because if this was bad, I think you would have just further weathered whatever goodwill you might have built up from this renewed optimism. So the Raw rating tomorrow should be really interesting, because do a lot of people come out from the good response to the show with renewed interest? Certainly in the women's division, but maybe how do they follow up the main event scene? I suppose you're gonna get Drew. But is there renewed interest? I think the rating will be really interesting to see. So thank you very much for that. We got a Scrump who says, this is my first time watching a WWE show from beginning to end since whichever night of Mania that Bad Bunny wrestled on, and I only tuned in as I saw the reinvigoration of the Raw Women's division, and I felt like the show might be worth the watch. It wasn't. None of the matches interested me or kept my attention. I just don't get what people see about Pat McAfee, and the main event had too corny of a finish for me to even semi-enjoy. Most people will disagree, and that's fine, as I've not enjoyed main roster WWE since SmackDown was on fire post the last brand split. WWE is at its best when you two recap it in an hour to an hour and a half. Hopefully, Triple H can make enough changes to where I can make time to watch their weekly shows again. All right, so yeah, I mean, it's not still going to be for everybody. And I get a good sense of like, what scrump, what you're into, from, of course, like reading your feedback all these years. And this sort of spectacle laden production is not going to capture the interest of everybody. I will say, harkening back to like the highlights of the Attitude Era, I mean, that was certainly a time of a lot more spectacle in their production than it was in ring content. And those are the memories that I think a lot of us leave with. And I would say there's an expectation for WWE to focus not just on in-ring content, but to do crazy shit like this from time to time. And more often than not, in trying to do crazy shit, they've really struck out. They've tried crazy stuff, and it just like it's crazy stuff in the worst ways. Like, I don't know, some goofy ass like zombie thing, or like Lashley's sisters, or just whatever, like a live sex celebration, just get things to get people talking for all the wrong reasons. Tonight they tried some crazy shit, and I thought they got people talking for the right reasons. So it's not for you, and that's totally fine. We got a John Taylor who actually has a super chat here with $10. Thank you so much, John Taylor, who says, enjoy your time with the family way. You earned it. Wrestling related, I noticed Michael Cole said WWE fans instead of WWE Universe. How about that? Very interesting, if so. We also have Simon Todd, Uncle D from the show, who sends $10 for diapers. Thank you so much, Simon, Uncle D. I appreciate that. We got a Felipe who sends a 2,500 Chilean peso super chat, who says, have a great break time way. Thanks for been great. I had a great time tonight, ready for F1 tomorrow. So I didn't completely get your message here, Felipe, but I will be talking to you about the Hungary Grand Prix tomorrow as well. So I'm looking forward to that whenever I get time to watch it. We continue here with our feedback thread, who said, we got a Matt from Tennessee who is actually in attendance. He says, I actually went to SummerSlam tonight. I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. I thought the show was a lot of fun, as I've never been to a stadium show before. Match of the night for me was definitely Roman and Brock, and that was the most loud the crowd was all night. Funniest moment of the night was whenever Logan came out. Some dude yelled, fuck you. Lots of boos for Logan, but by the end, I didn't hear any boos. And the biggest waste of time was for Seth and Riddle. What the fuck was that? Anyway, overall, I really enjoyed myself. Hopefully, it came across well on TV. Question, how long till Liv loses the title, turns heel, and blames us for the fans for the loss? I would say, Matt, if, Nikki Ash or like any sort of other paper champion is any indication, it'd be relatively soon. Maybe as soon as Clash at the Castle, if we're going to get that rematch right away. But although, like, with Ronda just turning heel, will we get Liv turning heel right away? Possibly. As for Seth and Riddle, maybe it was a bit of a waste of time. I think they wanted to maybe satisfy some of the audience who paid a ticket expecting to see both of those two. And if they weren't going to get a match, then at least, a big pull apart, some sort of appearance, getting to a chance to chant, sing along with Rollins' song was probably the most that they were willing to, at least just a bit of a make good, perhaps. That's the sense I got. And then we got a Chris Kent who says, good luck to you, Way, on the next few weeks. You shall be missed. Thank you, Chris. As for tonight, the back-to-back news from Becky turning to Io walking out had me jump out of my seat in excitement. This is enough that I can't wait for Monday to see how the women's landscape plays out. The idea of Io versus Asuka in the near future gives me goosebumps. The one issue I had with the evening was surrounding Liv. Between the cash-in and not knowing full well she didn't win the match, she really is not portraying a face. And I have no idea why I should root for the girl who is clearly on a different level, yet somehow has managed to take advantage of the situation in order to win. Other than that, I'd say thumbs up show. Started really high, ended pretty high. Middle was as expected. I'm in total agreement with you, Chris. I didn't think the match did Liv Morgan any favors as a babyface. What didn't add to it beyond that, it's one thing for Ronda Rousey to attack Liv Morgan, but then she went on and attacked the referee. And as we've learned from Becky Lynch, as we've learned from Charlotte, anytime you have somebody freak out and, commit some sort of big act in the attempt to turn heel, they're gonna get cheered, and that's what happened tonight. Like Ronda left, getting some applause and getting some cheers from her whipping around this referee. So I thought they took it a step too far, and again, didn't help. What lack of babyface traction Liv was getting out of the match anyway. We got a Brian from New Jersey who says, I thought this was a good show overall, bookended by strong, memorable moments. I really like the opener, and the battle lines drawn between with surprise returning names excited me. Main event was an incredible spectacle. You could only collapse and cut open the ring so many times. So it was time to tip it over. I'm all for Ronda going heel out of tonight, and I'm guessing Logan Paul is the new Shane McMahon. I'd say he's better than Shane at this point. I'm not really afraid to make that statement. Like, he seems way more of an athlete and way more coordinated than Shane was. Shane can jump off of high things really well. He could, and that's about it. Like, I think Logan Paul's striking looks better. Like, he's certainly had more legit. I mean, the man, was in an exhibition bout with Floyd Mayweather, So, let me know, chat room, what you guys think. Like, Logan Paul or Shane McMahon? Like, who is the better one at this point? We go to another call. Jake, welcome to the show. Logan Paul or Shane McMahon? Who's better?
Logan, 100 times anyway. So, anyways, yeah, I just came back from a friend's house. We were watching SummerSlam together today, and yeah, it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys mentioned it yet, but considering how much we've seen from Brock today, and considering that how much we saw that report from Brian Alvarez about what happened backstage with Brock. Yeah, do you think that this is going to be his days in the WWE might be numbered, in your opinion?
Sorry, is this a new report, or you mean what was coming out of last
from
week?
last week? Yeah, or because
are his days numbered? No, not at all. Okay. Considering he first of all returned on Friday, and secondly, did so well tonight. I feel like coming out of this show, things are probably better than ever. With Brock Lesnar and his relationship with the WWE. Again, I don't exactly know like what went down with him backstage. I don't know what his current relationship, what got him to come back, what his current relationship is like with Vince or with the new regime. But something tells me that there's not enough reason for him to leave just because Vince isn't there, because I don't see any change in their usage of Brock Lesnar. If anything, I can only see them using him better, and not booking him perhaps in the same sort of stale situations, Yeah,
I mean, I was wondering about that because it did look like he was having fun tonight. Like, he was having one hell of a time, and yeah, he was really enjoying himself. So, but yeah, I mean, the stadium looked great, and I'm kind of interested on what it will look like next month. And a totally different crowd. I'm pretty excited about the Wales crowd, the UK crowd in general as well. So it's gonna be a completely different atmosphere. To be honest with you, I'm really looking forward to Roman and Drew coming up. Yeah, I'm really interested in how that's gonna look next month with another stadium show. So let's see what differences they'll make to keep it special with these. We're having more of these stadium shows, so it'll be interesting how they're going to go along with that. So,
well, we know the crowd. We know the crowd will be incredibly hot for that show. As like UK crowds always are, and I don't know if Roman versus Drew will be a match that will top my I don't know if I'll be buzzing like this coming out of that particular match. But it'll be a more I think average, or at least like it'll still be good, I'm sure, as these two have had good matches before. Sure. But like it won't be the spectacle, but that doesn't mean it won't be exciting, and that you won't get a great entertaining show out of it, because again, I think the crowd support will certainly be there. You might get a new champion. That's a prime spot for a title change, I would say.
Yeah, definitely do up to that. Just want to catch up with you one more time, Way, and thank you so much for the great work that you did, especially recently and all these years. So really looking forward and really excited for you, man, for this new adventure with the family. So really bless your heart, man. So really proud of you, and can't wait till we talk again in the future.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you as always for contributing to the shows and always keeping up with us. So much appreciated.
Sweet, thanks.
All right, let's continue here with the feedback. We got a Muggin who says, of all the matches Reigns and Lesnar have had over 7 years and 3 WrestleMania main events, this last last man standing match was on the higher end of their catalog. It was a bonkers main event, and that tractor spot will be in every highlight package to the end of time. The Becky Bianca saga got the ending it deserved, and it was real cool seeing them gain respect for each other with a handshake. Perfect symmetry from last year. And it was another great match, and the Bayley return was tremendous along with Io Shirai and Dakota. It's easily the high point of SummerSlam. Man, do I feel sorry for SmackDown. Liv Ronda paved the way for a heel turn for Rousey, and it was the right move. Usos profits didn't live up to their Money in the Bank encounter, but it was still solid. The split will be heartbreaking. With this new regime change, can the Bloodline face some adversity for once? We shall certainly see. And I wouldn't necessarily be so quick to shut the door on SmackDown just yet, because they chose to reinvigorate Raw tonight with new talent. They could very easily do the same for SmackDown. There are free agents that are out there, 2 in particular that I think a lot of people might have been expecting tonight, and would make sense to bring back to SmackDown if that happens. There are other names that are available out there. If they set the intention to renew and reinvigorate, something, it's within their power. And you saw it tonight, like in one swift, really 5-minute segment. I have completely renewed my optimism for a Raw Women's division. So, again, they can easily do the same for SmackDown. So we shall continue to see. And will the Bloodline finally face some adversity? Depends if you think Drew McIntyre is adversity. I think there's a very good chance of a title change, a Clash at the Castle. So that would certainly be the biggest obstacle that the group has faced. And they're a very strong unit, and until there's like something better to take it over, I don't have a problem with them having all the titles. But yeah, Muggin, you're saying, there's not enough strong competition. I'd argue Brock was like, pretty strong tonight, but fresh competition, maybe. Yeah, that is a problem that they have to work on. They have to build new challenges. Bloodline versus Judgment Day at Survivor Series, please. God, that would not be strong competition, Albert. The Judgment Day are like Rey Mysterio and Dominik are stronger than the Judgment Day. I mean, that should really be the feud at this point. Okay, we got Nas, who says, thoroughly entertaining show. I loved it. Roman versus Brock over delivered by a mile. Best line of the night was Graves telling Michael Cole, I liked you better when you weren't allowed to have an opinion. I laughed so hard. The commentary was so good. I've really missed some of these lines. So maybe you guys are right. Maybe there is a bit of difference because I've just kind of learned to tune them out. But thank you for the notes. And we're going to end things off tonight as we approach a 2-hour broadcast and a lot of great feedback from you guys. But we're going to end with perhaps the most important and the greatest of all. We go to New Jersey. And Brandon, are you here?
Yo, what's up, man? I see you doing solo. I just wanted to shout out the show. I thought this was the best show of the post-McMahon era. I thought it was phenomenal.
You mean the best show of the past, 10 days?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought the women. I thought that was pretty cool. Like all 3 of them came out like that. Like you said, like you both said earlier. Like I mean, they got storylines for the next year now. I think that's pretty incredible. What they got going on. And
the real test is obviously not just in them having the talent, but in their booking. That is going to be the big question that we might start to get to see answers for tomorrow night. But they certainly have laid the foundation for change.
And like you said, like Triple H, his hallmark is how he really had a keen eye for the women's division in NXT, and I'm curious how, like you just said, like how they're gonna book the women's division for both. We're not even gonna call it brands, and there's not gonna be the brand split or whatever. Blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. For both shows, like curious what they're gonna do with the women. Very very optimistic. I think they have a chance to right or wrong and with their blank canvas and do good. Hopefully it turns out right. What they got going on.
That's it.
Oh, that's all I got.
Like a very normal call from you.
Yeah, man. What the hell? And I also want to give you a shout out. I know we won't be hearing from you for a while, and I wish you
know how to reach me. Yeah, I get the feeling I'll be hearing plenty from you.
Absolutely, but I just want to wish you, your wife, and then the baby good health. And
thank you so much.
positive vibes. I'm out of here.
Positive vibes. I appreciate it. Thank you, Brandon. As always appreciate your contributions as well as everybody choosing to watch us right now on the YouTube. Thank you to everybody who's been with us and has continued to stick with us even after the post daily news updates. John will be working his ass off, as will everybody who will be attached to the site. You know, especially people like Andrew Thompson, who will continue to bust their ass 24/7. There are going to be so many people that are be helping out and continue to help throughout everything that we do at Post Wrestling, almost too numerous to mention. So I encourage you guys to check out all the content and to send your feedback to them, because we like, it always helps. It's always nice to know that people are listening, you know, first and foremost. So I read every piece of feedback, like every comment that you guys leave there, even if it's not very nice, I will at least read it. And I'm at least grateful that people are paying attention. So I will say, like, if you're just, you know, out there, and if you don't even want to send a super chat, just leave a comment, send us a tweet responding to something, join the forums and leave some feedback, join the Discord, and let us know what you guys think about the shows. So thank you guys. Thank you for supporting Post Wrestling, and I will talk to you guys in a month's time. Bye.